Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today our special guest is Carey Anne Nadeau. Carey Anne is the co-founder and co-CEO of Loop Insurance. Welcome to the show, Carey Anne. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's really my pleasure.
Yes, thanks. So, as I was mentioning a little bit offline, I like to start off just to give an idea as far as the audience get to know you a little better. Are you originally from this area? If not, where are you from?
Yeah, great question. I actually grew up in New England, so I'm not a DC native, but I've lived in DC since 2004. So I've been around for some time. I currently reside in Petworth. I've lived there for the last 6 or 7 years. So yeah, I consider myself a DC resident. I have a license. I'm licensed to drive in the District of Columbia, own a property there. So very much a DC person, although not DC native.
Sure. We got a lot of transplants here, so that's normal. That's
Yeah, I
actually
stuck around for a little while too. What am I going on 16, 17 years in the district. So I've seen it pre-Target in Northwest for those that are in Columbia Heights, seen it through many. I think this is my fifth inauguration now. So I've been around for a minute.
that's great. It's interesting you mentioned. I grew up around the Columbia Heights, Mount Pleasant area,
Mm-hmm.
around there in 16th Street, Columbia Road, Mount Pleasant. And when I lived there, though, there was no metro. Target wasn't
Mm-hmm.
there, and all that new development was not there. It was a different neighborhood, and so
Absolutely.
I'm glad to see a transition, and it's now in a much better place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a city planner by trade, so I have studied the Columbia Heights neighborhood specifically. It's actually a noted and academically studied neighborhood, if you can believe it, and how economic development can be done well, and also monitoring sort of the gentrification of neighborhoods and the impact on poorer communities or native communities. Like there's a large El Salvadorian community that lives there, and what happens when big development comes into neighborhoods like that to people and people's livelihoods. So it's an interesting case study that I guess I witnessed live, but I certainly do appreciate having all of the modern amenities and lifestyle benefits of having a Starbucks and a Chipotle and a nice wine store, and the conveniences of that lifestyle. I certainly appreciate.
By any chance, I'm curious. Did you study that neighborhood in school, or?
Yeah, it's actually a
Okay.
case study folks use in city planning school, if you can believe it, because it really did take like an empty lot and transform it into a sort of urban corridor. But there were also very negative consequences for folks that actually lived in that neighborhood. And it actually brought a lot of crime into the neighborhood too. People stealing stuff from cars has dramatically spiked since Target and all of the big retail box stores. So it's an interesting case study of how developments like that can really change the nature of a neighborhood.
That's interesting. My good friend growing up in DC, his parents owned the Gala Theater. Is it Gala?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, Gala
Yeah.
Theater.
Yeah. Yeah. So
It's still there. I don't know
yeah.
how it's operating during COVID, but it is still a staple of the neighborhood. And there are wonderful restaurants that have stuck it out and succeeded and thrived as well. But there are certainly also others that have gone by the wayside.
Sure. So you mentioned earlier you grew up in New England around Boston, or where in New England exactly?
So I grew up just south of Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
So yeah, and actually that kind of is a nice segue to what I do now professionally. Grew up in what is the insurance capital of the world, Hartford. It's not exactly the sexiest topic, the most exciting thing. I don't think you go to the company Christmas party and someone says they sell insurance, doesn't exactly gather a crowd around you. But insurance is a really interesting new discipline that I think a lot of younger folks, data scientists in particular, are excited about, because it is really the industry that's taking data, understanding data, trying to price risk to care for other people. So it gives a lot of folks who are excited about data a purpose, a reason to be doing the analyses that they're doing, and to the benefit of humanity, to the better health and better safety outcomes for people. So it is an interesting field to be in now, that I think it's experiencing a little bit of a renaissance of sorts. And a lot of new, really awesome innovation is happening in the insurance sector that has taken a really boring, awful kind of who wants to live in Hartford, Connecticut, really, and changed it into this sexy, exciting, vanguard sort of renegade industry that is really at the cutting edge of some of the best and brightest and most interesting AI that I've seen, really ethical AI. It's really leading that charge.
That's awesome. I'm sure growing up in Hartford, you weren't, even though it was the capital of the insurance world, that you weren't thinking about insurance back then, right?
No, I come from a very blue collar household. My dad is a bicycle mechanic by trade. My mother worked at a grocery store, counting cash at a large grocery store chain. We were not white collar in any sense of the word. But it's interesting. I feel like insurance missed the opportunity. I was right in their backyard, but it took me 25 years of life to come back around to uh, looking at insurance as an industry that would interest me. I went to undergraduate at GW. That's actually what brought me to DC in the first place. And I wanted to study statistics, political communications, political science, public policy. Is very interested in the intersection of politics and mathematics and how we can make better, more informed policy using the discipline and mathematical principles of statistics. And had I known necessarily that there was a way to do that outside of politics to help businesses make better choices to the betterment of society, and really, again, that's like the field of insurance, right? Using data to understand what could go wrong so that we can better manage risk and prevent bad things from happening, not be in a circumstance where we need to fix things later, but actually help people better manage their own risk. So I think that Hartford maybe missed an opportunity. They lost a native son to the District of Columbia, but happy to be here now and to bring together that diversity of thought and that diversity of perspective and the importance of bringing together policy and regulation and industry with sort of an ethical approach to how the future can exist.
That's their loss and our gain here. You mentioned coming here to GW and studying mathematics and policy. Growing up, were you into math as a young kid? How were you as a child? What were you into?
Yeah, I was very into math.
Okay, that's
Very,
good.
yeah. I'll say a few things on that front. I was an exceptional math student from the very beginning. I always really cared a lot about math, and I had a mother who worked in a quantitative field. She counted cash, but she was doing arithmetic for her job. And so I think that definitely helped sort of not I would say, like, classify a young female math nerd as wrong or weird or incorrect or needing to be fixed in any way. It was really sort of supported in my household, and that was really great. But I think one of the most important things that I've learned over my career is you can be a really big nerd. You can optimize the world around you. You can solve math problems all day if you wanted to, but you really have to connect that math to reality to be able to communicate effectively, to be able to ask really good questions, answer really good questions. You can't just there's plenty of people who are just technicians purely, but where I like to sit in the ecosystem is having that technical proficiency, really being an expert in my field, but finding ways to communicate that externally in ways that other people can get excited about math, even if they're not a super nerd like me.
No, but that's good. I always liked math, but I got better until I finally went to college.
Mhm.
Yeah. So were you like in growing up? I know there's math clubs, chess clubs, and all that.
Yeah.
Were you in all that as well?
I was in
No.
math club. I was
Okay.
definitely a math club nerd, but I will say that like you don't have to be in math club to pursue a career in math. We're welcoming to others, but one of the things I learned early, and I'm grateful again for my parents for supporting. I very early on got all those tests that said like, holy shit, this is serious. You're very good at math. And a doctor told my mother to buy me a computer very young. And I'm so grateful. I have no idea who this woman was that suggested this course of action, but it really facilitated a lot of my success because when you're really good at math, you're solving problems in your brain constantly. Like you're looking at license plates and calculating, the difference in the subtraction of the numbers. If you converted the letters to numbers, what kind of math could you play around with on the license plate? Like you're asking and answering questions that like normal people just viewing the world see a license plate. The challenge with a lot of students and a lot of young people who are this exceptional at math, who are gifted in some bizarre God-given, I don't know where it came from, but you came out of the womb with the ability to do arithmetic. um, One of the challenges a lot of kids have is their brain moves a lot faster than their ability to verbalize what they've understood. And they get really frustrated. It's something I dealt with as a child as well, getting really frustrated and having to explain yourself all the time. Because you're like, I have thought through this. I am certain that I am correct. Here is the 7 steps of logic that I went through to get to this conclusion. And it is terminally frustrating to have to bring people along that haven't necessarily thought through or had the same logic as you had to come to the same conclusion. And so computers are a really powerful way for kids that have this brain that works too fast or faster than their mouth is capable of communicating in language, to be able to move very fast. So I'm actually an incredibly fast typer as well. I'm an incredibly fast coder. And it's just because I can't wait to get all that's in there out, and into a means of communicating with the outside world that isn't necessarily requires me to translate. It's literally like knowing a second language. If anybody's out there that's a coder, right? You learn multiple languages, literally. And it's almost like the mental energy required to translate something from English to Spanish. It's like math to English is also one of those transitions. So I think what I would suggest to others, or at least what worked for me, is finding alternative means for folks to manifest their individual brilliance. That could be artistic palette. That could be a piece of canvas where you give a child a paintbrush and see what comes of it. For me, it was a computer, and being able to begin learning coding very young, just as a means of communication, was a really important and fundamental part of how I got to where I am today, I guess.
The computer and the coding aspect, was this in elementary school, junior high school, high school?
Yeah, elementary school. I started coding in
Okay.
elementary school in the early 90s. And I'll tell you, I don't remember a ton of whatever language I was learning back then. I'm sure it's changed. There were a lot of floppy disks as I remember it. But I
Yes.
do remember it was right next door to a donut shop, which I was like also a little chunky kid. So yeah, another pro tip is make computers fun too, like incentivize them with donuts and you got a winning strategy.
That's a good combination there.
Yeah,
You mentioned your dad was you said bicycle or motorcycle bike?
bicycle, like
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
bicycles.
Okay, so bicycle mechanic and your mom, she did deal with quantitative things at work and counting money. Do you think you
Yep.
got it from your mom, or was there anything else as far as family, as far as this math genius in you?
Yeah, I mean, my family definitely. I am an outlier in my family. Actually, my extended family are mostly artists. So a lot of artistic and creative folks, an art therapist, a singer, an entertainer, a couple people who draw professionally, who paint professionally, sculpt, industrial design, dance therapy, like all kinds of movement and artistic creation. But I'd say the synergy between most people in my family and me is that as an entrepreneur, as somebody who has created a business, it is envisioning what you can do with whatever gift you have inside of you and imagining something that doesn't exist. That's why I was talking about a blank canvas, and giving a kid a paintbrush can be a means of just manifesting what's inside of you. For me, it was coding. For me, it was math, right? Getting that out through the medium of a computer. But I feel a lot of synergy with people in my family who are artists, who need to hustle and sell something that is strictly and purely creative, totally made up in their brain or in their mind. My cousin, my very close cousin, and I, when I was in graduate school, I went to MIT for graduate school and was taking an exam that was super hard, and I was kind of bitching about it to her. I was just like, man, like, it's tough class. Like, I'm not sure I'm going to ace this test. And she's like, you know what? Stop bitching, because at least there's a right answer for you. Like, at least there's actually a conclusion that you can measure how accurate you were. In art, there's no right answer. There's infinite amounts of critiques from infinite different perspectives. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. And when I graduated with degrees in math and moved out into the world and explored entrepreneurship as a manifestation for that, I have deep respect for artists, for creatives, for people that there is no right answer. It's just figuring out how you fit into the world. And if you do want to make money doing it, how you get people to buy something that didn't exist before, but you've manifest through your brain. And that is just like a cool, rewarding, fulfilling. I mean, you must feel the same way doing a podcast. It's like, I imagined this and now it exists and other people consume it. And it just feels good to create in the world and leave something behind you, like a trail of things that you've made a mark on the world. You've left something behind you that I think that's just such a cool reason for being, that I can, I kind of empathize with the art community for that reason.
I completely agree. I'm glad you mentioned Carey Anne in grad school. So you said you came to the DC area, you attended GW, and that was mathematics and political, right?
Yeah.
And
So when I was here, I graduated from GW in 2007, 8, graduated a little early. I got my first job in DC at the Urban Institute, which is a research think tank. It was a great opportunity for me because it was mixing this policy concepts and statistics, which is what I love. I was working in the Justice Policy Center, which focuses on folks who are involved in the criminal justice system, returning to society, and understanding the ways in which we can better invest resources or support those who have been involved with criminal activity and re-entering society successfully, not going back to jail. Being productive members of society, both from a political perspective, but an economic perspective, a well-being perspective, a sort of building of community, and more broadly, like sort of supporting communities who have been, I will use the language of, ravaged by over-policing during a period of over incarceration, frankly. So it was a really interesting real world experience to be going into jails, interviewing people who were incarcerated, asking important questions about what their lives were like and what they were returning to, many of which didn't have, say, even the bus fare to be able to get back to their home. If you're arrested in Cleveland, but you live in Akron and you don't have $50 to get a bus from Cleveland, like, what do you do, right? Like, how does that practically result in things like homelessness or recidivism, not having the proper support from your community or family, financially or emotionally or physically? So it was a really powerful, informative experience to really be on the ground and literally in jails as a young woman. It's not a place I regularly go, and thankfully was
oh
not
God,
myself criminally involved, but definitely an eye-opening experience. And then from there, I switched boats of sorts. I moved over to the Brookings Institution, which was always a dream of mine. Certainly, in the discipline that I'm in, it's regarded as a premier institution and an important place where policy is crafted along with policy makers who regularly come through the doors and who look to the research that is done there to advise and guide the direction of future policy. And there, I loved my job there. It was so rewarding to allow your intellectualism to manifest itself in the greatest form. One of the greatest gifts they have is that their endowment is so well financed that it allows researchers to explore concepts and to dig deeper and to analyze data, maybe not necessarily directionally oriented towards a specific destination, but as a mental exercise in understanding the world and really defining and qualifying, like, what is happening when we have cities going through the Great Recession and not rebounding the same way as other cities that maybe have the same industrial complexion or sort of income inequality and the consequences of a recession, or if we're talking about COVID-19, I'm sure it's hitting different communities very differently. And just understanding the ecosystem of urbanness, of economic development, of society at a more macro level in the United States. And I loved my job there. I would have stayed there forever, but I did find out someone was getting paid a lot more than I was for the same job. And that is a reality of women in general. Yes, I negotiated. Yes, I did all the right things. I spoke up and whatever, but it's the truth that women are paid 70 cents on the dollar to a man, and that was the truth for me. And so I decided that the right move for me was to leave and to continue to pursue my academic career. I'd been 6 years out of undergraduate. I didn't have a graduate degree, but I did want to go back to school. I was feeling that itch. Also, my GREs were expiring, so I was like not wanting to take those again, practically. And so I applied to a whole bunch of schools, and some in the DC area, some not. I ultimately was granted, frankly, the opportunity to go to MIT, and I think it is a beautiful place. It is one of the greatest gifts of my life to have been accepted into that community and welcomed into that community. It sounds a little bit pompous to say that I had offers from other Ivy League institutions, but I chose a school that I felt like culturally was a really good fit for me. And I would encourage people going back to graduate school, a lot of people in the DMV area, in school, going to schools. My greatest advice to everybody considering going back to graduate school specifically is to find the right cultural fit. For me, I felt like it was important to prioritize collaboration versus competition. When you're at the top of your field, when you are fucking smart, right? When you're super smart, it becomes less about competition because it doesn't really matter if you're first or second. You're really high up there. Like, you're of an elite class of thinkers. You are at the top and in the center of your field. Who cares if I'm second? Who cares if I'm ninth, in my class? What I really wanted to do was explore deeper into the universe. I wanted to know what more I could know, how far I could take it, what I couldn't see that others could help me explore. And so that is one of the really cool things about MIT is that they encourage cross-disciplinary interaction. They encourage like a rocket scientist to pair up with a city planner, to pair up with an oncologist and figure out like, what is the future of heart transplants going to be, right? Like, you have to be able to bring together people with very varied backgrounds, very different views of the world, to be able to imagine things that don't exist today. And I've got so many wonderful stories there, but the one that sticks out the most is they encourage hacking, what's called hacking, which in the data culture is like a somewhat overused word, but it essentially, what they do is say, break the rules that don't matter. Like, break the rules that shouldn't exist. Break the rules that you think that if you did it differently, the world would be a better place. Don't break the rules just to break the rules and be like a pain in the ass to other people, or even worse, like hurt somebody else. You don't want to break the rules. There are some rules that are in place for good reason, like you can't murder somebody, right? But there are other rules, like no dogs in a cemetery. That rule bugs the shit out of me. Dogs are man's best friend. I am honoring the dead people by bringing a dog here to respect and appreciate the lives of all these people, many of which I'm sure had dogs, right? Like, I'm just thinking through, there's so many other rules that I think we as a society just like put a sign up and say, follow this rule. And we forego the thoughtfulness around, why is this a rule? Should this be a rule? What kind of rules should we be breaking? How can we break them to make the world better? And that philosophy has followed me through after graduate school and into establishing my businesses. Like, why not give a bunch of undergraduate kids the license to build a roller coaster in the middle of campus? They're all engineers. They're going to be, put a helmet on. It's going to be fine. Like, and they really do encourage that. One other quick example that I love is there's an undergraduate dormitory on East Campus where you're allowed to have pets. You're allowed to have a dog or a cat. And it's important because of emotional support. You're going through a very traumatic experience and it's a difficult university to go to. So they allow you to have some pets to keep you company. And one of the dormitories said only one cat. You can't have because this cat population is going to get out of control, one cat. And so they named the cat Diamond. They registered it with the university as Cat Diamond. And then the university came back and they started, see more than one cat. And they were like, well, what's going on? Oh, no, that's Diamond. Everyone had agreed to name all of the cats Diamond so that the registered cat on file could not be identified among what was obviously more than one cat. And the university was just like, you know what? Kudos to you for figuring out a rule that you could break, that didn't hurt anybody, that isn't like that big of a problem to have. And now that dormitory has I don't know, a dozen cats, all named Diamond, just for the sake of hacking a rule, for the fun of it, really, and for the joy of it, really. So it's a philosophy that I've carried with me. When I graduated, I came back to the district to found my business, my first business. DC is home for me. It has been for a long time. Family, friends, godchildren, folks that I've just met along the way. And so it was the right move for us to come back and relocate to DC once I graduated. That's how I came back in 2015.
What did you graduate from MIT from?
City planning school. So I was considering business, I was considering statistics, I was considering city planning, public policy. City planning is a really cool discipline. As we started the conversation with a conversation about Columbia Heights, it's the intersection of policy, like reality, people's lived experience, economic development and growth, business. And it really does bring together this sort of multidisciplinary view of how we organize ourselves in space. And so I studied city planning in school, which is a kind of weird one. Not a lot of people study city planning, but really did help me think differently and see the world in a more holistic way.
So when you come back to DC, Carey Anne, do you know right away you want to establish your own business, or are you thinking of doing something in the city planning field?
Yeah, I interviewed a whole bunch of government jobs. I was like, maybe I'll go work for the Department of Commerce. Maybe I'll go work for DC local government. And I was in an interview. Oh my God, it was bad. In the middle of the interview, I was spouting some fantastic idea that I had that I thought was really transformational I still believe that they're totally missing the ball on this opportunity. But the lady at the table looked across at the table at me and she said, "Can you be managed?" And I was like, "No, why would you manage me?" Like, the first thought in my head was, why would you do that? If you've got somebody who really wants to push the boundaries on what's possible, why would you try to manage them? It just blew my mind. Like, her question was just like, I don't think this is the place for you. I didn't get the job, suffice to say. I didn't get any job. I didn't get any job offers. And I think it was,
I'm sorry, Karen. I'm curious. For this job interview, was it a government?
yeah, it was a government
Okay.
job.
Okay. It's not surprising that quite. Not to say all
No.
government agencies are like that, but it's not. It's the government world here in the DC. I'm sure in general, but it's different. Yes.
Yeah. And it takes a certain personality to find home in that space. I think there's a lot of really wonderful advocates and quality human beings that are working in government, no doubt, but it's a personality fit. It's got to be a good fit for you culturally, and it wasn't for me at all. So just sort of by default, like I didn't get a job anywhere. I was like, no one's going to hire me because I think too big and I'm trying to run other people's businesses and they're trying to manage me. And a friend of mine, was getting really into at the time open data, the data that are available from state and local governments. DC's got a great open data set. Just up the road in Montgomery County, Maryland, has one of the best open data portals in the world, which is a weird, truth that Maryland invested, Montgomery County specifically, invested in making information publicly available and transparent. And I was like, wow, this is an incredible data source that so few organizations have tapped into to understand at a more precise level, a more localized level, like what's actually happening in my community. And if we cared about those questions, like foregoing using that data was like naive. And I'm still surprised that more people don't use these open data assets that are available to us if they care about making data informed decisions. It's certainly a really great place to start. And a friend of mine, Christian, who I will give public credit to, he says, you got to thank me for starting this business. But he kind of kicked me in the ass and he said, look, you are specifically qualified and passionate about this issue. Who else is going to do it if you don't, right? Can you find anybody else in the world? And I had just, done, God knows how many interviews with other folks who had told me no. And I said, I don't think it would happen if I didn't do it. And that was sort of the kick in the ass that I needed to just do it. My first iteration of my company was a B to G, actually. I thought I could sell these data back to government by building new insights from the raw data and helping them make better decisions about how to prioritize public dollars efficiently, something that government isn't great at, but is something they could use a lot of help with. So my first conceptualization of how this business would ultimately manifest was, can I help the government know where it's unsafe to drive? If they knew which roads were unsafe, they could prioritize traffic safety initiatives. You could send traffic safety officers to teach children about crossing the road, or you could make investments in actually fixing the physical infrastructure, painting crosswalks, reorganizing or re-engineering bad intersections. You could, in some cases, add police or cameras or traffic cameras to capture bad behaviors in police areas where you believe that that would be helpful means of deterring future bad activity, right? And all these ways that you could use that information. Well, we ended up selling the technology to the District of Columbia, was an early adopter. Way to go, Department of Transportation. Big ups to you guys. The city of Chicago also purchased this asset. But what we found when we worked with Microsoft for a little while, what we found was that many cities were unwilling to explore the data and know what was in the data because it would present them with a liability, knowing that it was unsafe. If they didn't have the resources to actually rectify the problem, they were only creating a liability that they didn't want to take on. And that's deeply disappointing from, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, like you would believe that your representatives and the people working in government would have your best interests at heart, but there is always a financial interest and a legal framework in which they operate that making the best decisions sometimes more difficult or more complicated to actually just do the right thing. And so it was important to be in the District of Columbia to do this, right? To say, like, at the seat of government, let's try to make government more data driven. And it was a phenomenal failure. It was a big L. It didn't work. And that's okay, right? Like, it's okay to lose. It's okay to try and to fail. I learned so much. And I had organized a business. I had set up and established a business in the District of Columbia. So I had dealt with DCRA and DOES and DSLBD and all of the acronyms of knowing the nuance of starting your own business. That was a learning in and of itself. I learned what didn't work. I learned how to create an algorithm using this public data and the nuance of like what goes right and what goes wrong in the data itself. I learned how to build a team, how to recruit. We recruit a lot of data scientists today from GW, from Georgetown, from Maryland, from George Mason. I mean, just building that network and that ecosystem of great people. Ended up participating in the Halcyon Incubator, which is over in Georgetown. Fantastic program focused on social entrepreneurship and supporting financially as well as sort of emotionally and practically, and helping young new entrepreneurs navigate the world of business that may not necessarily even come from a business background. I didn't have a business degree, I had no business starting a business, but I had a really good idea. And they really were quite supportive early on in helping us get our feet underneath us and pivot the business actually into insurance, where we started selling to other insurance carriers to start, and then later spinning up our own insurance product.
When you first started, was that originally Loop, or was that the pivot that eventually became Loop?
It is a pivot that eventually became Loop. It had a series of bad names along the way. Never let a statistician name your company, I'll tell you that much. It was originally called Open Data Nation, which I felt like was a hearken to Red Sox Nation, which I was a diehard Red Sox fan, and also Open Data. But it turns out outside of government, open data sounds like a scary thing. Like, wait, you don't own your intellectual property? Wait, you are using public records? Like, is it accurate? Like, could anybody get these data? Like, there's just a lot of questions when you surface the reality that some of the information you use is public record. And so we changed the name to Ometry when we pivoted into insurance. Ometry is Greek suffix to the act of measuring, which is an important, I think, thing to be doing, right? To be measuring more things, to be understanding the world around us, quantifying the reality so that we can improve it. But then when we launched our own product, Ometry, I think very few people knew how to pronounce it. So it was important that we made a more consumer-facing brand, something that people could hear, remember, and get excited about Loop, which we're happy to bring to market.
How did that pivot occur, Carey Anne, with Ometry and then now Loop?
Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit into what Loop does today. So Loop is a private passenger automobile insurance product. So you can actually buy auto insurance from Loop. We are going live in the next couple of months. So I should say you can't buy it yet, but you will be able to buy it very soon. And the idea is that we are taking many of the traditional ways of pricing insurance that have built in really antiquated measures of rating drivers that have very little to do with how they drive or whether they're even going to be involved in a crash, and instead look predominantly at your demographic data and who you are, your education, your income, your financial credit score. We are foregoing some of those demographic data in favor of a more data-driven approach. What we're measuring is how you drive, where you drive, are you likely to be involved in a traffic crash? That's the most important thing to be measuring if you're an insurance company. And we believe that the business of Loop is really fulfilling our broader mission of, by accurately pricing automobile insurance, we can correct for a lot of the systemic bias that is built into using these traditional rating factors and provide a more accurate price for people that the system hasn't worked for previously. And that can be people of color. Importantly, I think there are communities that have been redlined, that financial services has been reticent to serve. But it also means for people who are renters, who don't benefit from home and auto bundles, right? You get 15% off for owning your home. You don't become 15% better driver, right? We want to make sure that this product is fair fair insurance for all people, whether you're a renter, whether you're a person of color, whether you have a blue collar job, you haven't graduated from an Ivy League school. We actually just don't care. That's not our business. What matters to us is how you drive, where you drive, whether you're going to be involved in a car crash. So I think this product is really resonating thus far as one that is vastly more inclusive. We've done a number of other things like remove the obligation for you to report your gender. You can be non-binary. That's okay. I'm cool with that. Like, we just want to sell you auto insurance. We don't really care what your sexual orientation or your gender preferences are. That's true for married individuals as well. A lot of traditional policies don't respect domestic partnerships. Also, if you become a widow, they take away your married discount. I'm like, what a kick in the ass. Like, what we should really care about is, again, who's going to be in a car crash and why are we measuring any of these things? So that business did evolve from what was the data business. The technology that sits at the core that really measures the things that matters was Ometry. We attempted to sell that into incumbent insurance carriers. We went to the big institutions in New York and in Hartford and said, hey guys, like, if your business is to care for the well-being of other people, if your business is to accurately price risk to ensure your profitability over time, but also sell more products to more people, grow your business, this is the way to do it, right? The society is moving in the direction of being much more data-driven, less oriented towards traditional proxies like your credit score to measure your probability of a crash. Let's look at using a device in your car or on your phone that says, here are the roads I travel in, and here's how many traffic crashes happen on those roads. That is a much more direct measure, much more accurate measure, much more dynamic measure to reality. Turns out, I think insurance carriers are largely incentivized to make premiums off of their investments of the money they make from you. They invest their premiums, so they collect money up front. They put it into a trust that earns 4% in the market, and they're happy with those earnings. They're not looking to do the things, not looking to accomplish the same things that I think Loop is setting out to do, which is better serve customers, actually build a product that reflects people's needs, and establish an insurance product in an industry that pretty much everybody hates and considers like, I have to have it, but I don't want to have it, and instead transform it into a product that people believe that they do need, that, you know, protecting your financial security, because if you are involved in a traffic crash, we're going to take care of your claim, is a product that you want. And that through this product, you can actually better manage your own risk. So we'll be giving data back to our customers. We'll be sharing with them risk insights. Did you know that that road that you drive on every single day is very likely to have a crash? And there is an alternative that is much safer for you, much safer for your family. If we can incentivize being a driver companion really to drivers and incentivize people to take safer roads, we'll reward those behaviors with discounts. You deserve to pay less because you are less likely to be involved in a crash. And we will sort of be that companion to our customers to help them better manage their own risk. And in doing so, the profitability of our book of business will also improve. But that's something that I think is aligned, is an aligned interest that customers, frankly, are getting excited about, because they're not against businesses making money, but they do want to benefit in equal proportion to a business making money from the data that they provide. So that's sort of the essence of Loop and what we're setting out to do. Like I said, we're launching, actually, our first state is the state of Texas. So hopefully we will be in the District of Columbia soon, but we're going live in the state of Texas. If folks knows folks in the state of Texas or live in the state of Texas, they will be able to get Loop insurance in 2021, hopefully.
Carey, I love that example you just gave as far as being right next there to the driver, and you saying this road, there's more danger of an accident that may be prone to happen, maybe take this other route. And if they do that, there may be a discount associated with that, right?
That's right. Yep.
How is the insurance company, is there a tracker that they would have to input in the car? Like, how do you know that they're actually implementing more safety on the road?
That's right. So our product is mobile only. It only exists
Okay.
on your cell phone. In the
Ah,
process of enrolling, you actually provide us your geolocation information, the same way you would provide it to Facebook or to Instagram or to a dating app or to a food delivery app. There's really a generation of consumers who are comfortable sharing that information for their benefit, right?
sure.
We want to make sure that the product that we provide back not only ensures you, helps make you a better driver so that you want to share that data with us. But we do need to be monitoring where you drive in order to give you back those insights to say, hey, you were on a very unsafe road. Here's a road that would be better for you. We do need to be making, monitoring where you go and how you behave on those roads importantly as well. But we're really, one thing that differentiates us from others in the market, you may have seen the commercials, the sort of don't mess with my discount commercials. That if you've ever downloaded a product from one of these carriers, they really wag their finger at you. They say, look, like you're a bad speeder. You're a hard breaker. Like you really need to fix how bad of a driver you are. That's just the wrong tact. It's just the wrong approach to helping people better manage their own risk. What we really should be saying, and what Loop is saying, is we think you're a great driver. We think you could be better. Here's how. Take our suggestions, leave our suggestions, but we'll reward you if you take them. And let's see how people respond to that.
I love that. You recently also just raised funding, right?
Yes, we
Congrats.
did. Thank you. We raised $3.25 million as a female founder and a Latino male founder, co-founding team. It is not easy. It is not easy. And it is one of the more rewarding quantified measures of our success thus far. Like, I have graduated from all these universities, I have had all of these careers, but for somebody to say, here's $3 million, go realize your dreams, is the coolest thing that has ever happened. I discourage people from pursuing this because it's not easy. I'll say, like, I am credentialed as fuck. Like, I am very credentialed. My partner raised a $40 million fund, John Henry Matus. He was worked with Harlem Capital, before founding member of Harlem Capital, which is a VC firm focused on Black male and female entrepreneurs. He had raised a $40 million fund, and it was still hard for us to raise capital. It is harder to raise capital than it is to get into MIT. Like, it's almost impossible. And throughout the course of fundraising, I'll say, like, we're a financial services product. We're selling into financial services, and we're saying, hey, financial services is biased. It's structurally inadequate and misguided in these ways. We think we can price arbitrage here. We think we can build a very big business around an automobile insurance product that is priced accurately. And how many people said to me, oh, is that an urban product? Oh, is that going to have a lot of fraud? Such thinly veiled racism that still exists in financial services. And I think it's really important that the VC community also understand the types of investments that they're making in specific founders, people of color and women, are addressing problems with a different lens and view of reality that a lot of these VCs have never had to confront themselves. That in fact, like, their own bias is something that they need to confront before investing in a company that is also confronting bias in the same institution in which they work. So we certainly made it hard for ourselves. Probably could have been an easier road, but it's important work. And eventually you do find the investors who are mission and vision aligned, who get it, who realize how important this is for the evolution of our society, who see the moment that we're living in, who realize that, like, there's actual enthusiasm for a product like this. There's a market for a product like this that isn't just urban oh my goodness, like the thinly veiled misogyny and racism that exists in the world. It's still there, but it's going to take more folks like us in this 2020, 2021 era of seeing what's happening in terms of the social justice movement, seeing what's happening in our economy, and feeling really compelled to take action and fight the odds that a product like this could be successful in market. So I am all for celebrating $3.25 million. And I hope there's more people that come behind me. I also hope there's more people that are given that same opportunity. And so I've been doing quite a bit of reaching back out into my network, encouraging folks to reach out to us on social media, ask questions about how we did it, how they can do it, how to build a business without venture capital. I did it for 7 years before raising any money. And when's the right opportunity? When's the right time? But, entrepreneurship is exciting, and raising money is part of that journey, being of a small group of people that door opened for, and I got to peek inside. I feel like I'm now in the castle and I'm going to see what's in here, like I want to explore a little.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have that opportunity to go realize those dreams.
What would you say is the main takeaway you learned from this capital raising efforts?
Be yourself, right? Like, just tell your authentic story, because at the end of the day, if you do get money, you will feel great about it. Having to change who you are or tell your story to meet the audience, it just feels ugly and inauthentic. And ultimately, if we were to do that and raise money, we would set ourselves up with expectations of the investors that are invested in us, that we would sell out, that we wouldn't be ourselves when we were operating the business. So from the jump, I think it's really important advice to tell your authentic story, not sugarcoat what didn't work or who you are, and instead just like really lean in on, this is me, you're going to invest in me, you should know me, and I'm a little weird, like that's okay. So my advice would be yourself. Just be yourself.
That's good. Having the right teaming, surrounding yourself with the right team, whether it's a co-founder or CTO, whatever it may be, is important. How do you go about surrounding yourself with the right people?
It's a great question. And a lot of it has to come down to hiring, because you can't go very far by yourself. You really do need to bring in an ecosystem of people. No rocket ship gets off the ground with just a pilot. Like, there's a whole infrastructure of people. And even once it's off the ground, who's making sure that nothing fell off the side and that we're still pointed in the right direction? It's a whole group of people around us. I think the thing that I filter the most for, and is the best cultural fit for our company we are hiring, is ambitious people, but also sort of courageous and adventurous people. People that do want to know what's coming and how do I get there and what's around the corner. There's plenty of people who will follow rules, plenty of people who will follow directions, but we're looking for people that hack a little bit, that are like, do I need to pay attention to that rule? Or is there a strategic opportunity that I can grow our business into a niche that other people are ignoring or overlooking, or not using data to ask, is this a viable option for our business? So I think people of that cult find their way to us, enjoy working with us, and we like to recruit with that mentality. It also means that we have a very foreign dominant team. A lot of people are international on our team. Our CTO is from Morocco. Our head of data science is Chinese. Our head of user interface and user design is Iranian. Our head of our project manager is from Canada. Another project manager from India. I mean, we are just one of the more diverse. I think I'm the only, there's maybe 3 people on our team that weren't born here or aren't first generation Americans. I mean, it is part of our culture to attract that sort of talent, and it creates, just by being open-minded and willing to see talent in different people, a really amazingly diverse perspective and team. And we're all a little weird. We have team meetings. Shinga, our head of data science, she's a phenom at these Lego sets, like these really intricate, detailed, like books worth of instructions in constructing these like operationally like electronic Lego fascinating. Ali shared, he's our CTO, shared he's a big Formula One fan. He got me into Formula One. Now I'm like a Formula One freak. But like what all of the rules and the tire compositions and the flags and just incredible, like fascinating people with a variety of interests that we've brought together. It's a blessing to just be open-minded and then create a team around you that also shares those values. It's really
I love the diversity you have there.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
fun to work for Loop. I think we're looking for the greatest talent, no matter where they come from, who they are, as long as they fit our culture. I think, it's a fun place to be.
That's cool. What would you say, Carey Anne, is probably some of the biggest skills or habits that you use on a daily basis that maybe have helped you personally or in business?
That's a good question. I think one of the more important things that I do on a regular basis is just check in personally with members of my team and make sure that we've developed a personal relationship, especially during COVID-19, where you can't just like pop into somebody's office. It's important to take time and just be like, hey, want to get a virtual coffee? I'm not going to talk about work. Sometimes we end up talking about work, but like actually building a rapport with people because they are still people. And when shit happens in their lives, which is bound to happen, your uncle dies or you trip and you fall and you hurt your knee, there's not an awkwardness around sharing something personal, because personal and professional now more than ever is intertwined. We're in homes. Your kid is going to come into a meeting every once in a while. Your cat's butt is going to be in the face of everybody on a Zoom call at some point, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like developing rapport and personal relationships with people is so important, and it's hard to do now. So something that I am conscious of making an effort to continue doing with my team. There's some members of our team I've never met in person. Like, it's just a reality of COVID-19 that our team, our head of UX, who I mentioned is Iranian, lives in Germany. Like, I've only met him on Zoom. Probably won't meet him for some time, for that matter, but still trying to find a way to know him personally and have him feel comfortable coming to me for personal issues is an important, I think, leadership thing that I've tried to over-index for.
Okay. What is your biggest challenge right now with your role at Loop Insurance?
Yeah. I talk to my leadership coach about this a lot. So I'll be vulnerable and open with you. And I love having a leadership coach as well. Like, shout out Steve Heller. Always have a leadership coach. But what we talk about more often than not is mixing a data culture and a marketing culture. Those two cultures can be at odds. It's like a miracle to me that Facebook exists, because they've created a consumer-facing product that is also deeply data-driven. And it's important in insurance that we acquire customers, we have a product that people can use and functionally understand, but also like satisfies their needs and makes them feel good and gives them that customer feedback. That marketing culture is very like fail fast, build quick, iterate, put an ad out, see if it resonates, change it up all the time. Data science is kind of a functionally different discipline, right? They function on a different timeline. We build with integrity, a lot less duct tape, a lot more thoughtfulness around building something that will last. We don't want something to fail and market, because it's more catastrophic if we misprice somebody and we discriminate against them. We need to like have checks and balances and securities in our process that the marketing team doesn't necessarily culturally or practically need as part of their process. So it's like running two treadmills side by side, and one's on super speed and one's on like a slow jog. How do you create a corporate culture that actually melds both sides, where you end up at the same destination at the same time, and you have cohesion between teams that do need to learn from each other and do need to interact with each other, but who operate at very different speeds with somewhat different goals and ambitions and lifestyles and views of the world. And so I talk about like building company culture a lot and goal setting and how we help everyone sort of work together as a cohesive team. I think that's a shared challenge for a lot of companies during COVID, frankly. And I don't know that I have good advice to resolve it, but it's something that I work through on a regular basis.
What do you do to sort of help with that? Is it sort of that coffee chat that you do with some of your team members?
Yeah, it's just like including more people in decision making. Sometimes when you are in a leadership role, you think you're the one that has to make all the choices. And it's sort of like, all right, bring this issue to the team. Like, what does the team think? Is the team experiencing the same tension that I observe that they're having? Is there ways that we can get good ideas from other people besides myself, and just like not put all of that on my shoulders to solve? Because if I am trying to create cohesion, it just doesn't come from top down. It comes from others making the effort to have coffee with each other or get to know each other. And it's not something I can force or enforce for that matter. So it's just, trying to include more people in decision making, I think helps.
Okay. Karen, what do you think you know now that you wish you would have known at the beginning of your career?
Hmm. That's a tough one
Would you have
because
done anything differently or changed anything?
no, not at all. But I would like to reflect that it is a process that like, I think a lot of folks feel like they have to have the answer straight out of the gate. And something I've always felt is important in what I do is to let it evolve. Let the customer tell you where to take the product. Let the market speak. Take that feedback, follow it. Like it isn't going to be a straight line ever. And I've tried 3 different business models. 2 out of 3 so far has failed. I think I'm onto something now, but it took those 2 experiences to get to the third one. I could have never founded an insurance company had I not built what I built before from a technical perspective, but also from a relationship perspective, knowing people, meeting folks who wanted to help me along the way at various stages with various problems. So if I had to reflect on my earlier self, it just doesn't come fast. You're not going to become an overnight success. It never works that way. It's hard work over many years, failing and learning that'll get you to where you are now. But I wouldn't give up the success and I wouldn't give up the failures either, because I wouldn't be here if I didn't experience that. But I probably would have liked to know that it was going to take like 7 years to get here. I would have been a lot more patient in my decision making had I realized how long it would take. I wanted it to move faster, but it is how it happens. I mean, yeah, I think even the best entrepreneurs in the world, the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, would probably repeat the same thing, that like Elon Musk wasn't an overnight success. Jeff Bezos wasn't an overnight success. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, those are all men. Maybe women have it differently, but like for all I can tell, no one's ever been an overnight success in entrepreneurship. So just be ready for a long ride.
It takes a long time. I'm curious. Having the right business partner is tremendously important, and it's almost like a marriage, just a business marriage. How did your relationship with John Henry, your current business partner, come about?
Yeah, we met at a tech conference. So I guess every once in a while, those tech conferences can be helpful, networking events. Um, we're very different disciplines. There's very little overlap between his expertise and my expertise. And that really helps to define very clear lanes of leadership, the things that we oversee, the decisions we feel like we can make and have responsibility over. So finding folks that are different than you is my advice in that regard. And that's true from when I was in graduate school to now, like just finding folks that are augmentative and not necessarily duplicative of what you do, because you can go farther if you find those folks. Sometimes you need more people to do what you do, like you need help, but finding folks from other things that you don't do well can be accelerant and help you go farther faster.
Is so true. Coming to an end here, Carey Anne, what does the future look? What is the next 5 year? What's the vision for you and
Yeah.
Loop Insurance?
Oh, Loop Insurance is going to be an amazingly big business. I hope that when I look back, I look at this podcast and I can reflect in 5 years, and look back in the same way that I look back on the last maybe 5 to 7 years, which is we're going to fail, we're going to succeed, but we're going to do something meaningful in the process and leave behind a legacy of just trying to do the right thing for more people, trying to make the world a little fairer for other people. And that has given my life purpose. And even if we don't end up as a big business, I will feel good about how I lived and how I put myself into the world. But I do expect to be yacht adjacent at the Monaco Grand Prix, waving across at Ali as we watch Formula One day as well. That would be a terrific outcome. And I wish that for other entrepreneurs as well. I say, I'll see you yacht adjacent. I want that success for all of the people that I know. And so we keep that as our distant vision, not too distant vision for having a business that is meaningfully impactful, but also financially successful.
That's awesome. I love that. Last question. What do you like to do for fun in your free time?
What free time? When was that? No, I walk my dog. Every morning I walk my dog for an hour. It gets the blood flowing. It gets fresh air into my body. It gives me a joy de vivre that I would not otherwise have if I rolled out of bed and rolled into work. I also swim, although I haven't been able to do that in the DMV area, but looking forward to doing that in Austin. Swimming is fantastic because you stare at the bottom of the pool for an hour or however long you swim. You don't see a screen. You can't get distracted. There is no noise other than white noise and like focusing on nothing, literally nothing, a line. And that to me is a really important part of my life that I missed during COVID that I'm really eager to get back, is that unplugging, just being able to have peace and have quiet, and have thought and have aloneness. Yeah, I think those are kind of, I don't know that it's free time so much as like what I try to make the most space for.
I agree. I'm just that way. Every morning, it's almost my meditation, my working out, and it's just me alone. And that's my sort of where I release everything.
Yeah. To some extent, like COVID has isolated us in our homes, but it's isolated us ourselves in our homes with our families. And like, I love my family. I love my partner. I love my dog, my cat, my in-laws, my parents. Happy to have all these people in my life, but I could also use some time away from them too. So,
yeah, a break's always needed here and there. I agree.
Yeah.
Carey Anne, if people want to know more about you and Loop, where can they find more information about Loop Insurance or connect with you?
Sure. So loopinsure.co is the website. They can connect with me on LinkedIn, where I'm most active. They can connect with my partner and co-founder, John Henry, on Instagram, where he is most active at John Henry Style. We are a social first brand. So what I would say to those that do want to connect is don't just connect, interact, like shoot us a note about your experience, share with us how you want us to design this product, what impacts you, what could be meaningful to your life, because this is your opportunity to be a part of that community, to be a part of what this product will ultimately become. It's early enough in our product development. Like I said, we're going to market this year. Insurance will be for sale in the state of Texas in 2021, God willing. But now's the moment where we get to craft what the future of financial services is for us and people who look like us and people who think like us and who want to have a more inclusive, mission-driven future to insurance and insurance in general. So yeah, interact on social, like shoot us a note, tell us your story, help us write some blogs, just be a part of our community, not just a passive observer. I would welcome anyone connecting and yeah, getting to know folks.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Carey. I really appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you for having me. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll see each other in the DMV.
Yeah, so bye. Take care.
Cheers.